Hi, trade professionals, and anyone else that's listening, because you do not have to be a trade professional to listen to us. But welcome to the weekly Roundup, and I am back, and I have my two specialists with me, obviously, because they get to answer all my questions. I have Lalo and Andy. Woo, okay, I don't even know why I still introduced them because they're basically the stars of the show. But, I'm going to make my own. I'm going to make my own moment here. So, yeah, my name's Anik, and I will be going over the articles for this week. So, first article I chose was U.S. trade group blasts Canada for refusal to extend digital services tax freeze. And this seemed like a very hot topic to me. Seemed like a little bit of drama going on here. So Canada is refusing to join this agreement of extending the digital services tax freeze, and America is confused, is what the article is stating. Not exactly, but those were my terms. Now, I want to know what this agreement actually is talking about and why America is joining and why are Russia and Canada holding off. So what are the pros and cons of this agreement? Can you guys elaborate on this?
Well, right off the bat, we've talked about some of this in the past, and what this is again, the U.S. and several countries have agreed in the past to a freezing the effort to try and tax digital services. And so what's happened is it's come up for renewal, and Canada has elected not to, or has chosen not to renew and sign on with that, along with, as you just mentioned, Russia and a few others. What it means is Canada then has plans, the Canadian government, to tax digital services. This comes right back to if you are looking at shopping online, doing Google searches, if you will, doing whatever the potential is, you're requesting information and you're using internet service providers that is providing. So you see the exchange of information, you're buying and selling goods, all of that would be subject. Your banking, you want to move money from one account to another, there will be a tax involved in that. If you want to pay a bill electronically, there's going to be potential here for a tax on that. You want to buy something, like I said, on Amazon, Etsy, anything, you're going to be subject to a tax. If you stream movies, that's a digital service. That in addition to your subscription fee or your movie rental fee, there will be now a potential of a tax towards the government on things of that nature. So it basically means everybody's kind of surprised that it's going to be detrimental, quite frankly, to e-commerce and to electronic business. But that's where Canada looks like they're going to try and gain some revenue off of taxing digital services.
And part of the thing is that I guess in general the other countries, I guess there's the world's countries that are respecting this moratorium. They're not necessarily saying that there's not going to be a tax eventually. They're just trying to put a moratorium until they can come up with updated tax regulations or rules, because right now they are based on old, outdated, just rules, and part of the problem is that they don't feel that those rules are going to be fair. And we talked about this before. There's some times where you can get doubled or even triple taxed on the same service only because it is the way the rules are written, or the way normal taxes work, I suppose. So anyway, and so that's what I took from that.
Okay, I understand it better. I definitely do. And do you know, so you think basically that Canada wants to make some revenue, right? And that's why they don't want to freeze it?
Well, that's what they're
Canada's
saying in the
always looking
article.
for ways for revenue. Yeah, it's just all this is where any government that is looking at taxing digital services is looking at generating revenue, and that's So basically, it boils down to it. Now, action. If you are opposed to that, especially those of our Canadian listeners, you better reach out to your elected officials and make your voice known and be adamant about it. Because again, you're listening to music, internet radio, satellite radio, all that's digital services, and so it may be only, oh, well, it'll just be a penny or 5 cents or several. It will add up, and I guarantee it'll just be another thing where that tax is going to come out of your pocket. So
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to monitor that because so is this already for good? Like, when is this agreement?
well,
Well,
it's
everybody
right
agreed.
now is that
Right.
they've already said they're not renewing it, so that's
Right.
where that's coming into play. So
Yeah, and everybody said that we're gonna wait till the beginning of next year, 2024, before we make a decision on starting taxation again, because they're hoping that they'll again clean up those rules and make it a little better for for the industry. But there are 5 countries that are saying no, not right now. I mean, we're not observing that moratorium, which is Belarus, Canada, Pakistan, Russia, and Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because that Russia and Canada are on the same page. It's weird. But that's what weirded me out the most.
Yeah.
well, it's just again, there any country is looking at it. I would not say that there's a camaraderie or brotherhood on the issue. It just happens to be coincidental that Russia wants to tax digital services. Canada is looking at doing it, and a few other countries. So just be aware of that.
Yeah. Well, we'll monitor that and see what Canada does or what their game plan is here and how that is going to affect them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because it should. But, anyways, okay.
Attention all trade geeks. The G-Tech conference is coming to Oklahoma City and you won't want to miss it. Mark your calendars for July 30th through August 1st and join us for a jam-packed event with expert-led sessions and networking opportunities. And guess what? The Simply Trade podcast will be recording live at the event. Don't miss this unique chance to be featured on a show and share your insights with fellow trade professionals. We'll see you in Oklahoma City, where trade compliance takes center stage. Go to www.ncbfaa.org and become part of the action.
U.S. bill would punish enablers of Uyghur human rights violations in China. So, do you think this bill to expand U.S. sanctions to include foreign companies that do business with entities identified as contributing human rights violation could be passed? And I have a guess, actually. I want to put in my guess because let's see, because I would think, so, okay, my guess is that it would not be passed, but it also would or should not be a problem because any country should respect human rights either way, right? So I feel like if they say no, it kind of would be silly because, I mean, I think it's going to be no, but I think it's silly because I think every country should either way respect these human rights and it shouldn't even be a problem if it was a yes.
Well, this wouldn't even be an issue if it was the case. What we don't know is the number or the specific country or companies that this bill seems to be addressing, other than these are companies that are supposedly supportive of slave labor. If you can call it forced labor, slave labor, whatever, in certain countries, especially like the Uyghur section of China. So you've got where this bill would enable the U.S. to extend sanctions against companies that are supportive or have been deemed supportive of slave labor. I mean, I think it's going to pass. To be honest, I think there'll
Really?
be more.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think it
it's
will
one of
pass.
those things where I mean, and I hate talking about politics, like, although we do tend to do that here in the on the show. But it's one of those things, and has nothing to do with trade. I mean, well, of course, the law does, but the fact that they're going to pass it doesn't have anything to do with trade. The fact is that, can you imagine being that congressman or that senator that says, "No, I don't want to pass it. It's okay with me that there's
Oh, yeah.
slave labor." I mean, can you imagine? I mean, you don't want to be that guy or that gal that says, "I'm good," you know. So anyway, that's why I agree with Andy. I feel it's going to pass, and if it doesn't, just wait for election time. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of people
Oh,
saying,
people will make hay out of that one and
yeah,
say, "Yeah, see here, my opponent over
they
here
support
is."
slave labor and blah blah blah. So yeah.
You
So
know,
that's why
oh,
it,
what? You would hear that? Really?
Of course,
and
it's
it,
like
who
if we
it's
were.
it
Yeah,
yeah.
In my world, that doesn't exist. I feel like that's not sunflower and sunshine. That does not exist.
And you've heard the commercials when
No,
there's
I don't
political
watch.
ads. When there's
No, I have
political
never.
ads, oh
I
my
literally
goodness.
have never.
Anyway, okay. Well,
and
there's
you got
political
your head
ads.
in the sand on that one.
Yeah,
I'm
and you
calling
need
you out
to.
on that one.
Yeah, you
Why?
need to.
No, but seriously, I don't even think those ads should be allowed.
Well,
Well,
maybe,
whether you
but
do or not, they are. It's
right.
like,
I was gonna say maybe, but
Freedom of
that's
speech.
the fact of the matter is that they do exist, and they're also on Facebook and on TikTok and everywhere else. But no. Anyway, I just want to be. I just
Wow,
want
I
to
live
tell
under
you
a rock. No, I
that's what
really
my
have not seen it. But you know what? My question is, how forward is the US with this kind of stuff? Like, are other countries, like I'm saying Europe? What is the case here in Europe on what's the stand in from that human rights of like the Uyghur thing
forced
and
labor.
yeah.
like when forced
I
labor?
mean,
Exactly.
everybody, a lot of countries, a lot of them have a forced labor regulations. So they all do that. I mean, again, you don't want to be the person that says, or the government that says, "Oh, we don't support that. We're okay with forced labors." Yes.
Um,
Okay.
okay, but we're going on to Article 3, which I last episode, I didn't forget, said we needed something uplifting, and we came from forced labor. So actually, that doesn't have to be too uplifting, but it's very uplifting. So, U.S. inflation outlook brightening, consumer sentiment near 2-year high. That's kind of brightening, right? I mean, it literally has the word brightening.
Just for the sake, for the sake of this, the soundbite on this, the title, U.S. inflation outlook is brightening. Hey, and consumer sentiment near 2-year high. Great. What in the world has this author been smoking?
Oh my God.
I'm telling you, if things are
Way
still
to go,
continue to
Andy.
be, oh, you know what? Inflation has gone from, instead of 3.5%, it's now 3.4%. It's gotten better. You know what? You guys go pound sand as all day long, because this inflation has gone up. Things are going up. Fuel is still higher than it should be. Goods are still higher than they should be. Why? So this is just one of those is putting lipstick on a pig. It's still inflation, and it still sucks eggs.
Okay. Well, there goes my brightening article. Sorry, guys. No,
Right out the window, Annick.
but you know what? No, I mean, it's good for I like when I get that, because I
Yeah.
see something and I read something and I'm like, okay, seems more positive, even though the article was kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's good to hear from someone that has a more critical view than I do, because obviously I don't have, the I don't want to throw out many years, because I don't want to make you look or sound old on this podcast. But
I'm older than dirt.
many years of
Yeah.
experience that I don't have. But yeah, it's the right stand. And did I have another question? Let me see. Oh yeah. So okay, question. This article shows that we're on the path to normal prices. That's what it said, right? So I'm thinking, do you think trade will be affected by that, and things will be imported more, exported more.
Okay, so I did read that in the article. I have this little note that I put on here. So I was looking at my notes because I'm just trying to see what you're talking about. So yes, so import prices, not including tariffs, of course, but import prices did fall, because there's a decrease in food prices, which there have been a slight decrease in food prices and other imported goods. But it doesn't mean, it just doesn't mean that it's going to significantly
From
increase.
a standpoint where inflation, instead of paying 3 times normally, or 3 times above what we did 2 years ago, we're now only paying 2 times as much. Oh, hey, things have gotten better. That's not returning prices to normal. The problem is normal is now just going to change because as time goes on, yeah, you have that inflation rate. It doesn't go down and the prices reverse unless there's negative inflation, which there's economic situations that could happen. However, all said and done with this, I think the scenario is, as long will the fluctuations normalize out? That's a possibility. That just means that your average price for goods will be higher than it was 2 or 3 years ago, but it will not be on a trajectory of just continuing to rise, and double year over year and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing. The other is imports and exports, as far as international trade, will continue to overall, just in general, due to consumption and all that, will more than likely rise. There'll be fluctuations in certain industries at times. But as a whole, you'll still see the international transactions. What's changing, though, is that we mentioned this before. Due to, I think, significantly of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act in the U.S., the forced labor prevention in Canada and in Mexico, as well as in Europe, companies have moved away from, and it's taken a couple years to get there, but now they have changed sources rather than China. They moved away from China as their source for goods. That means that there's been a drop now with the amount of goods coming out of China, but there's been an increase then out of Canada, Mexico, and other countries around the world into the U.S. So the trade is still there. It's just shifted from one country to another. So you'll see those kinds of fluctuations that continue.
I have a question. This might be an easy question, but some people might not know. I actually think I knew this one. The world's most sanctioned country. What is it?
North Korea.
Russia.
Okay. No, it's Russia.
Oh, well.
But do you know how many? I even think I knew that one. Do you know how many sanctions?
Like dollars in sanctions? How much?
No, I don't even. That's not dollars. 14,081.
Oh, sanctions. Wow.
Yeah. Now remember, what is the objective of a sanction? It is to monetarily try to influence a country and its people to modify their behavior, whomever the sanction is against, to stop doing something that has been considered bad and change their behavior to move towards something good. In this case, obviously, on Russia, it's dealing with the Russian Ukraine war. There's the oligarchs and things of that nature, and different things that Russia seems to be promoting that the U.S. and other countries seem to be against. So,
yeah. Well, this was a fun fact. Not a fun fact, but not fun for Russia. That's what I have to say.
That's for sure.
It was a fact.
It was a fact. Okay. Well, see, we were catching up on these articles, and I'm glad you guys got me down on my sunshine horse and flowers. It's so sad. And
I'm so monotone. Maybe I should be a little bit more exciting next time.
But you know what? if you're listening to this on your way to work or something, at least you learned something new. So that's very brightening. And I love to end with a bright words.
Yeah.
And I hope you have a great start into this week. It'll be an amazing one. And thank you, Lalo, and thank you, Andy, for all your wise words and knowledge, because I need it sometimes, especially in this industry. Anyways, so we're gonna go now and have a coffee or something. Bye.
Bye, Andy. Bye, Andy.
There you go. Have a good day, folks.
Simply Trade is not a law firm or an advisor. The topics and discussions conducted by Simply Trade hosts and guests should not be considered and is not intended to substitute legal advice. You should seek appropriate counsel for your own situations. These conversations and information are directed towards listeners in the United States for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only and should not be substituted for legal advice. No listener or viewer of this podcast should act or refrain from acting on the basis of information on this podcast without first seeking legal advice from counsel. Information on this podcast may not be up to date depending on the time of publishing and the time of viewership. The content of this posting is provided as is. No representations are made that the content is error-free. The views expressed in or through this podcast are those of the individual speakers, not those of their respective employers or Global Training Center as a whole. All liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the contents of this podcast are hereby expressly disclaimed.